Welcome to the Work in Real Life podcast. I'm Jenny Winspear.
And I'm Marcus Varell.
And today we're going to be talking about leadership. So, Marcus, what makes a good leader to you?
What makes a good leader? God, straight in, aren't we? What makes a good leader? Compassion, hardworking, emotional intelligence, first in, last out.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
First in, last out. So describe that a little bit more.
So I think, because in many ways it's like a perception game, right? And I'm not throwing shade at anyone in particular, because there are other traits that can make up for not necessarily being there the longest or all the time. But I think a good way, or almost a guaranteed way, to make your team feel as if you're not leading strongly is by not being there, like all the time, yeah, or being accessible all the time, or like not responding.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree.
No,
no.
I mean, it's not like
we're starting with it.
Yeah, it's not like a die on my sword thing.
Yeah,
but like,
I don't think, like, I think as a leader, it's all about. Because I have this whole thing about presenteeism, right? I hate when people judge like time in the office, and especially because we're such a remote workforce these days. Like, and actually in my position, I want to start traveling more. Like, I want to be remote, like working. I get what you're saying about the availability thing, but also as a leader, you have 100 other things that you need to be doing. So,
but first and foremost, making sure your team's set for the day. No,
not always. No.
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 Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other things that you think? I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit hypocritical there, because I do agree with everything you've just said about like, because you have to balance that with like autonomy, right?
Yeah.
Like feeling empowered.
Yeah.
Or empowering your team to make sure that they can function without you.
Yeah.
So I do think there has to be both. Maybe I just get concerned when, if say you're grinding away and your leader's not there.
Don't you trust that they're doing their job though?
Yes, if they've installed that trust.
Yeah.
But if they haven't, then this is what I mean about like worst case scenario, I guess, is that you feel, I think an animosity can build quite quickly.
If you feel you're doing all the work and they're doing nothing.
Yes.
So how do you create more visibilities maybe?
Yeah, but that to me is on the leader, right?
Yeah.
You need, like, your team needs to know what you're on, and you need to know what they're on.
Yeah, and that's like regular communication. Like, you would probably have at least a check-in once a week. Well, that's how I do it anyway. I'm like, right, what have we got on for the week?
Yeah,
like, I'm going to be busy these days.
Review and preview, right?
Have you got everything you need?
Yeah. And I think it also depends massively on the type of team or the thing that you're doing. Like, a leadership in an office environment is going to be very different to leadership in like any other work environment, or like a sporting environment or whatever. But I guess what the overarching thing is, let me track back. I think it's accountability.
Okay.
And taking accountability for like the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah.
Owning your shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, I just got examples of things I wouldn't do it, or hopefully wouldn't do as a leader, but not being accountable or like passing the buck, I think is like a massive, we're not going to go into red flags yet, but for me
too,
probably a red flag.
Yeah.
What do you think? What makes a good leader?
I think I like accountability a lot. I think that as a leader, you do have to own the team's outcomes. Like, it's not just you as an individual. It's like, if someone fucks up in your team, you're actually still accountable for that. Like, you are there as their shield whilst they're still learning, and like, they're working with you for desired objectives, but the reason you're in a higher position is because you are there to take the blame. So like, if something goes wrong with a client, as the leader, a good leader would say, all my fault. Like,
yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I feel like,
for sure.
Because as you progress into leadership, also you've built your reputation. You should have like, people who are early on in their careers, like, they're still vying to like prove themselves and do more. But as you do reach that leadership position, it's less about trying to take the spotlight and more about building your team up, protecting your team. Like, I think a good leader definitely does that.
Yeah, massively. Like, I'm actually reading Simon Sinek's book, Eat As Eat Last, at the moment.
Oh yeah,
and he talks about his circle of trust, which is exactly that, because humans just don't operate effectively if they feel unsafe.
Yeah.
So the job of the leader, like it would be back in, you know, the days of living in a tribe, would be protect the tribe, and then everyone can do their little jobs and they'll be fine. Probably don't use the word little jobs either, because that's very demeaning. But everyone can play their role, feel safe about it. And I think you need to, as a leader, create an environment where everyone feels as if they're, autonomous, but they're also safe, but not just safe from external factors, but safe from internal factors as well. Because I think some leaders are very good at, like you're saying, they're protecting from, say, a client's kicking up stink because of X, Y, Z, you've missed a deadline or whatever, and they own that. But even better leaders, I think, are very good at kind of like quashing any issues within teams or a culture where it's like, what's it called, chopping the tallest poppy syndrome down. When someone else is like, you see someone else doing well and someone in the team is like, well, I don't really like that, so I'm going to like do something vindictive to make them not appear as quite good. And I think good leaders make sure that everyone's celebrating everyone's wins and making sure that everyone is kind of like gelling and performing and feeling safe from their other team members, because not every team, unfortunately, you're not always working with people that you're going to get along with, but a good leader can kind of instate a culture where even if you don't get along with people, it's not like the end of the world and you don't feel as if you've got a kind of like, there's not like one-upmanship and things like that.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head right at the end of your sentence there, was a leader creates the good culture. Like a good leader will create a good culture. It's not just the team relationships that we've just been talking about. It's also about the accountability. It's about like living the values of the organization if they're right for the strategy. It's about showing that behavior and holding people accountable to certain behaviors as well, to mold a team that they know is going to deliver strategically, they know is going to be good with clients, they know is going to help decision making. Like if you can instill a culture where, and let's not go close to groupthink, because we still want to celebrate diversity of thought and stuff like that, but if you have a really clear concept of what the business needs to do and you're able to get those behaviors from your team, then you're a good leader. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's true across any group like that that requires being led, right? But I also think a key thing to that is like making sure that there is and I hate all the cheesy leadership jargon, but like a shared vision, a shared mission.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? A leader culture where everyone feels like they are a leader in and amongst themselves, which therefore kind of makes a team of leaders is like a good thing, I think, where everyone's like owning their shit and accountable for it in line with the bigger picture. It comes back to the saying, again, this might be in Simon Sinek's book, when it's like, if you ask someone who's laying bricks like on a building site, you could say, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm just building a wall. But if you ask the person that's aligned with the mission, they'll say, I'm building a cathedral. Do you see what I mean? So they're focused on the bigger picture, not just their little job.
I've not heard that analogy before, but I liked it.
There we go. Thank you, Simon Sinek. Yeah, but it's so true though, right? Because I think it actually came from when they were doing, and they asked a janitor famously at NASA, what are you doing? And they were like, we're taking America to the moon.
I've heard this one,
and then Simon Sinek obviously just puts his spin on it to make it a bit different. But
he did a good job.
Yeah. Go on.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, what then is the difference between a leader and a manager?
I actually think managers get a bad rap.
Yeah.
I think mainly just through language. Do you know what I mean? Like how people use it, because managers become like a bad thing, which is awkward because I'm marketing manager, so I feel like, should I be marketing leader? Like, am I doing the wrong thing?
Do they come with a bad rep?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, I've done like leadership training, and then it's like, be a leader, not a manager.
Yeah,
and
so
micromanager is like bad. But I think sometimes, to me, managing is more like coaching and more interactive, whereas leading is like leading by example or doing things in a certain way that people can then kind of imitate or find their own way of doing it. But I think you need both, and things require both. Like if you're managing a project and is your responsibility for the outcome, then I think you do need to be a bit more managerial than just leading. If you're trying to kind of get people to kind of rally behind a cause, then you probably need a bit more of a leader. But if you've got a project where you need a group of people to do a certain thing a certain way, right? And
you just need to deliver the results.
Exactly. But I think that's also applicable in some situations. And sometimes the reason you are a manager or a leader is because you know how to get shit done.
Yeah.
And therefore people need to do what you're telling them to do, which kind of goes against the whole leader aspirational piece, because sometimes you just need to be like, no, don't do that, do this. I need it done that way. I'm at the end of the day accountable for whether this goes tits up or not. wrong or not.
Do you know what I do find is interesting though? So as people like progress through their careers, you start off quite technical, and then when you move into a leadership or a managerial role, you're suddenly expected to move away from the technical and start doing not just like the project management side of things and making sure people are meeting their tasks, but also the people development side of things.
For sure.
And I feel like people who've really nailed not just the technical aspect, but also the people side of things are who make the greatest leaders. Maybe that's when they progress from a manager into a leader. Is that not only are they getting shit done as you need to do in delivering the client's objectives, they're also nurturing a team, they're helping them to grow and develop, and they're still aligned to the strategy and the visionary. And so there's a whole host of things that go into leadership. It's like, one podcast,
and it's incredibly hard. Like in my journey to being more managerial rather than technical, I do struggle sometimes to like get off the tools and look at the bigger picture. But if I had people that were doing stuff to a standard of which I would consider the right standard, then I wouldn't have to. So it's like finding that balance between spending the time making sure that the team that you're working with is upskilling in the way that you need them to meet the standard that you want, but also sometimes rolling your sleeves up and getting in there and doing what needs to be done. And I think that's what I mean about like being present and needing to be there, because I think
I'm going to challenge you though. Do leaders need to be doing the fixing, or would a good leader guide someone through whatever needs to be fixed? Like if there's a problem, like does the leader need to solve it, or does the team need to solve it with the leader's guidance?
I think it completely depends on, and this is why I think there's more nuance than like leader and manager, because I think people require different approaches. Sometimes some people are very good at like, show me how to do it once and I'll be able to do that. And in certain instances that will work. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's a piece of software you haven't used, I'm an expert at the software, I'll show you how to do it once and now you can do it. Great. And I'm the type of person that would respond to that well. If I had someone who'd be like, well, here's a document that you can read and it will help you learn how to use this, I'll be like, can't you just show me? And then I'll know. But that's because that's how I learn, but not everyone else does. So I think it's tricky. Because it depends fully how yours working.
I'm laughing because you made me think of a story back from I used to work at Deloitte, and they like buddy you up when you start Deloitte. Right. You get a buddy, and here's your buddy, like happy to help you with whatever you need and stuff. So I started asking him questions like, how would I do this for the client? And he'd be like, have you Googled it? And I was like, well, no, like I was going to ask you because obviously
because you're my buddy,
you're
that's
my buddy.
Your job, and that's your responsibility.
It started getting to the point where literally everything I asked him, he first of all would be like, have you Googled it? And I got into this routine of Googling things first and then going to him being like, yes, I have actually Googled it, and this is what it said. However, I'm still stuck. And we did have so much better conversations after that because I had improved my knowledge a little bit in the space, like probably got rid of the stupid questions, which is just interrupting his day and causing his productivity to decrease. And actually got into the value add, okay, now that I understand what that is, what's your added experience? So it was a tough lesson. It was a bit jarring because I was like, so fucking tell me to go Google shit.
No, I completely
tell
get
me the answer.
Yeah, for sure.
But it did help me seek the solution before going to see him and then using him as
and
like
that's
a
a learning
checkpoint.
piece in and of itself. But my counter argument to that is I don't think you should ever be buddied with someone that hasn't got the time to be a proper buddy and help you find the answers, because then that's the person above them's bad leadership because they buddied you up with someone that they've said look after this person and
I feel like everyone's busy though, you know? Like,
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I completely agree that like finding your own solutions is great, but to me, and I've got shit for this at work as well, because we obviously have like, you've got Photoshop over here, Illustrator over there, CRM management system over here, blah, blah, blah. And we have a bunch of people that know exactly how all of that stuff works. And I could go Google the answer, or I could just ask the bloke sitting next to me.
But that's interrupting his day, and that's going to disrupt his productivity. He's going to have to get out of the task that he's in, talk to you to give you something, go back into the task. Like that's at least 10 minutes. Like I know that we're not being clock watchers here. We're like, oh my God, 10 minutes late. But it does stack up, especially if you've got questions every half hour. It could be like, oh, just what did you think about this? That's why being in the office is so disruptive sometimes.
I completely agree. But again, counter argument to that. I either get it done in 30 seconds by you showing me and then I know how to do it, or I spend an hour searching for a problem that I don't know.
How much deeper do you know the problem?
Well, this is it. It depends again on like the industry and what the problem you're trying to solve is. But if I can't articulate the problem that I'm trying to solve, through searching it, like typing it out, then I need to ask someone. And because of the way I am, I'm like, I can probably articulate the problem speaking it, but there'll be instances, and I'm sure everyone's experienced this, where you don't even know what you're Googling to solve.
ChatGPT, voice
Whack
note.
it in there. Give me a problem to solve, because I don't know what the problem is, but I'm struggling.
ChatGPT. You can do it on voice note.
Yeah, I suppose.
And then you go, okay, I'm trying to figure out this thing, but I don't really know what the problem is, but here's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, what is the problem that I need to be solving?
And then hear all these, and they'll give you all these articles, and you're like, go and read. Or do you know what the worst is? I know we're going down a bit of a tangent here, but when someone sends you like not a play along video, but like a video of like, and I bet you've done this with the software that you work for, when you're like, I'll record a Loom video and I'll show you how it works, right? And that video was recorded a year ago, and then there's been a system update, and all the like buttons that you were clicking on when you've done your video have now like moved, or like have a different, you know, they work differently or something like that, and it's infuriating. That's why I'm always like, ask a person. But I agree, sometimes that's not the best for productivity.
Yeah.
Yes, a bit of a juicy question here, and I know you've probably quite opinionated about this just from knowing you for a few times, but who do you think makes better leaders, men or women?
So I looked at some research on this, and Harvard did a study where they rated leadership competencies, what makes a good leader in the literature, and looked at two groups, men and women. And women were rated better than men on 17 out of 19 of the leadership qualities.
Right.
So I'm diplomatic in my answers, as you always know, but mic drop.
Yeah.
But that was that study. Now, do I believe that women are better leadership? Not at all. Like, I think there is a mixture of qualities that both men and women have that are needed in leadership. I think traditionally, if we're going to box or stereotype thing, women are better at those human skills. And actually, this is not just my thinking. There's loads of evidence around here. Women are better at those human skills, which is like building relationships and, you know, conversation, looking after well-being, like all the stuff that makes people productive and engaged in their jobs and more likely to be retained and this, that, and the next. I think I know from research that men are typically bigger risk takers. They are more decisive in stressful situations. Like, this is not, I don't want to generalize and say this is what men do, this is what women do, because I know women, myself, I'm a risk taker, I'm decisive. I think there are leadership models that don't take into effect so many individual differences. And I think we need a good balance of both, which is why we need both men and women in those decision-making rooms, because you get that balance of, okay, well, did we think about the people aspect of this? Or, okay, did we not want to rush into this? Or we need to just make a decision now? Like, you get a good mix.
Yeah, for sure. I think it even, like, I mean, it's a very divisive question, really.
Just and it to also antagonise.
Well, and I think it kind of begs a bigger question of, like, how applicable is the kind of hierarchical model of having leaders still in this present day? Like, I would argue that a lot of businesses would benefit from a more flat structure, which would obviously then kind of enhance the diversity of thought and not really relying on sort of one person. Do you see what I mean? Like, whether it be a man or a woman making the key decisions. Because I think if everyone's, like what I said earlier, if everyone's like accountable for their shit, and then you can kind of, it's quite like diplomatic or democratic.
Very democratic. And I was going to say, does a democracy always work in business?
No, absolutely not, because I don't practice that at all. I'm very much like,
do what I say.
Do what I say, please.
And but also, like, if you think about different industries, like the army, for example, that just wouldn't work.
No.
But in professional services, it might. And maybe the answer is we need to experiment a little bit more with where those flat structures would work, because I totally agree. Like, I think they can be really fruitful for getting everybody's opinion and really being innovative and creative, and like, especially in your industry, like, it would be brilliant. It is brilliant to have those kind of flat structures. The hierarchical doesn't work so much, but yeah, it doesn't work as much like on a building site. Like, oh, we should put that wall there. No,
should we? Let's have a tea break and have a think about what we should do, and then all have our say. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a case of like the environment that you're working in, or the like outcome of your work. Like, I think if you need to get a lot of shit done, then I think the I'm full on like kind of Darth Vader approach. Do what I say. Do you see what I mean? To get it done, and then as a team we can deal with the repercussions. But at least we've made some progress, because I do think you can. It kind of the flat kind of managerial or hierarchy approach can lead to just a lot of like talking, discussion, and not a lot of action. And I think I would argue that you have maybe learn more from like doing some stuff sometimes rather than like talking about it, because you can talk in just, you know, hypotheticals for hours and try and work out the best way. But if you're doing something that hasn't been done before, or you're trying to explore like an idea, it's like, well, let's just suck it and see, right? And then work out what we should do.
And this kind of brings me on to another question, because in a flat structure, I imagine this would be difficult, is how honest do you think leaders should be?
Oh,
like, should they tell you everything that's going on with the business, or should they keep something, like, should they protect you? Like, I think
it's tricky, isn't
it?
It is.
Like, do you talk about, oh, the business is in crisis and, you know, we're all going to lose our jobs? Like, would you say that? Like, I just don't think in like a redundancy situation, for example, leaders would be sharing the information that the business is in crisis and you're all going to lose your jobs. Like, there is a level. So like in a flat structure, how does that work? Like, who gets to know the information?
And who doesn't?
And who,
how, like who's important enough to know that we're all going to get fired soon versus who just needs to carry on and work out that they're fucked in 4 weeks' time. Yeah, it is difficult, because it comes back to that like circle of safety thing, and I think it's so dependent on the team. And I don't just want to keep saying it. It depends on the team, but it really does, because some people can't operate in high stress environments, and adding something into the mix like, oh, by the way, you probably need to start looking for a new job because you might get fired because we're not making our targets, for example, would just make that person not perform, which would then be detrimental to the bigger picture stuff anyway. So you'd be better off like not telling them. But then like as an individual, like solely speaking in my experience, like I'd want to know when it comes to like what we're trying to achieve, I like to know as much as possible because I don't like inheriting problems from people at all. Like I sometimes struggle with the whole, and now this is your client, your project manager. I'm like, what? Wasn't there for the initial conversation. Like, what's going on? And then I have to, in my head, like have all those conversations again, because I'm very much like, I'll hear you out and then I'll work out what needs to happen.
I think it's interesting as well when we talk about like how transparent should you be, and like how much should you communicate about the business. Also thinking about how transparent should you be about your emotions. And this is a funny one. I work in wellbeing. You'd think that I'd be like, just wear your heart on your sleeve. I don't actually think that. I think as I've been in this role more, and I get stressed sometimes, like my job is very stressful. When I've brought that into the office, it impacts everyone around. It makes people nervous, and like, especially because I'm in that decision making like position, if I'm then going, oh my God, I'm so stressed, like I don't know what's going, it really had an impact on the office environment. And so I've actually stopped bringing my full self to work. Right. Maybe controversial. See, that surprises me.
Not in that I think you're like an emotional wreck or anything like that under stress, but as in like, I suppose that's interesting to kind of, because it is, I agree. I think you have to, like, stress sharing doesn't halve the stress.
No.
In that environment, it like multiplies.
It does.
So I think you have to find a way of like managing your own stress, like even if it's going away for like 10 minutes or having a slightly longer lunch break, or just like working from home for a day.
Just choosing to be positive when you come in. Like I've generally found, like, and it will be a bit of a mindfulness type thing, I will take a breath before I go into the office if I'm really stressed and go, I'm going to be positive. Like I make that decision to go in and be positive. And being positive and optimistic, like it's not inauthentic as such. You still are feeling that, and actually when you're telling yourself that anyway, it makes your stress feel much easier. It's kind of like you train yourself to not be so stressed because you're trying not to share that stress. And I think like kind of echoing that is that I quite often, whether it's actually for my benefit or for the team's benefit that I'm working with, I'll quite often say, guys, it could all be a lot worse, couldn't it? Like we are literally just a bunch of apes floating on a rock, or on a rock floating through space, like just for perspective. Like, because it's so easy when you're working with like your clients and you're in the corporate environment all the time to take everything super seriously, which you should if you care, and that's great. But you do also have to just ground yourself sometimes, go for a little walk, stare at the ocean and go, do you know what? Like, is it really worth me getting this stressed and then imposing that stress on like 5-6 other people, and then rather than just me having a bit of a shit couple of hours, everyone else is now having it does
couple of hours.
It really does impact people. Like, I do think that in those kind of environments it's better to not like definitely not internalize. I obviously have other outlets that like I will talk things through with, and like my parents get a big brunt of it, I'm sure. But like it impacts productivity in the workplace, and it causes uncertainty. And actually, as a leader, you really don't want to be doing that.
No, for sure. So what do you think are some of the like biggest misconceptions that people have about leadership, or like maybe even being a leader?
I think that you have to make, the misconception is that leaders have to make all the decisions.
Yes, that's a good one.
I don't think leaders have to make all the decisions. And actually, I think a good leader will empower their team to make some of those decisions, but not let them fail.
Yeah.
Like giving the right decisions gives autonomy, it builds confidence. Like the people who just go in and say, this is what I want, this is how I want it done, this is the right way of doing it, you can learn from me because I'll tell you exactly how it's done. They're not a good leader. They're just saying, this is how I do it. A good leader should be really encouraging people to be creative and learn on their own and make some of those decisions that they can then feel responsible and proud for. Because otherwise you're just a cog in the wheel, aren't you? I'm just doing what this person says.
Yeah, for sure. See, I think for me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that like leaders have to be like more senior. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So like to me, that's a good one. Everyone can be a leader, and we talk about it so much. But the whole like, well, you've been here the longest, and you're now
the leader.
So you're the leader. Fuck this, it's not my problem. You're the leader. But I think like if more people kind of approach their work and life as like, I'm in charge of this, then I think everyone would be way better off. And it doesn't come with like age or like years on the job or like hours doing something.
It's funny you say this because actually in change management, when we're trying to implement big projects of change, there's a stakeholder analysis that comes right at the beginning where you try and figure out not who's the most senior, but who are the influencers, like who are going to be your change champions, basically. So who do you need to get on side? Because not because of their position, but they are so instrumental to the business that people like them, listen to them, they go to them to ask them for help about certain things. Often there are there will always be senior management team. Sometimes you promote leaders who are going to be influential anyway, don't you? So typically you will have a couple in senior management, but they could be like an employee who has been there for ages but has decided not that they don't want to be. It could be the receptionist, like they're really influential. They say hello to people every day. They're always sharing all the news. Like they're the people you want to get on side for a big change project because they're going to have the most touch points. People look to them for influence. So I think you're totally right in that leaders are not just those in leadership positions.
For sure.
Leaders can be anyone in the organisation. It just depends on the influence you have.
Absolutely. God, that was good.
Good soundbite.
I completely.
Got to wrap this up now.
No, I completely agree. But okay, so let's talk about our experiences as leaders a bit more. Who do you think, this is potentially spicy, but who do you think are the most difficult type of people to manage or lead?
I mean, the person I manage is an absolute dream, so I can't really talk about her. I think the type of people that would be difficult to manage are ones who are not eager to learn. People who are not prepared to ask questions. I really hate when people don't ask certain questions. They don't have that curiosity.
Curiosity is key. Yeah,
it's really difficult to manage that. I think I feel for leaders who manage remote teams because actually building a relationship from face to face is really important in team environments. It helps that managerial relationship as well. I think people would be hard to manage who just expect everything really quickly.
So that'll be me then. Yeah.
Me, actually.
Yeah.
And I look back now and actually I wanted the world when I was like, I want a promotion every freaking year, like I'm excelling, like this and next. Yeah, I was just like, and I would ask for it as well. And looking back now with the wisdom of my years, I do think it was good that I was told no sometimes.
Yes.
Like it's better not to be given everything immediately because it helps you understand how you need to rationalize those things, like I deserve this promotion because XYZ, and actually doing the time around that. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of people that are difficult to lead, anyone who's too similar to me would be a nightmare, I think. generally because I think that like if you have too many people that are like similar that you're managing that are like yourself, then it's like it's not actually very beneficial to the team. It's like, well, I've got all of that, you know, like constantly challenging the way of doing things.
Too many challenges.
Or like overtly opinionated, or like, you know, very driven and whatever. You can't have a whole team of that. You know, it doesn't work. So anyone like me would be difficult. But I think the curiosity thing I agree with, like very difficult to manage people who don't have any curiosity. But I think a key thing is like people that just want to follow rules.
Yeah.
Because I struggle with that anyway.
Yeah.
But not because I think it's... I don't necessarily know why. I've just always been that way because I just think I believe in sort of frameworks and doing things, but rules and abiding by the rules fully just means you're just doing stuff.
Oh my God, you'd be so hard to manage.
But it's just doing stuff to tick boxes, right? Like understand the rules, master the rules, and then push them to their boundaries, because outside of rules is where innovation happens. And following stuff, like if I just said I need you to do this, 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 and this, and you only ever did this, this, and this, that would...
But sometimes we need those type of people as well. I wonder if we're being tainted of our views of like what we want in a workplace and like who we are in the workplace and what we want to see, and actually like thinking more broadly about the different types of industries and like different types of personalities. Like a really introverted person, like they might not challenge, might not feel comfortable challenging.
No, absolutely.
But we want that. Like we would like that. We would find that hard to manage. So I wonder if different leadership styles will struggle with different direct report styles. Yeah,
definitely. Like I'd really struggle with someone who's like overtly introverted, because I'd probably take their introversion as like they don't like me. Yeah. Because I'm just like, why don't they like me? They're not talking to me. I'll ask them I'll throw them a bone of a question in the morning, be like, how's your weekend? Up to anything exciting? And they'll be like, yeah, it was good, thanks. And then they're back to their work and I'm like, oh, they hate me. Why do they hate me?
And it's funny because there is so many different personalities and leadership styles to manage in the business.
Yeah, and sometimes those kind of people just like want to get on, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Should we do like red flags and green flags?
Red flags and green flags of leaders.
Should we do? Because we kind of talked about it, but I want to like sum it up in a red flag.
Have you got three?
I do. We've probably talked about some of them, but we can do three. Do you want to go red flags or green flags first?
Let's do your red flags first.
Okay, and I'm going to talk personal stories here. So, my first manager red flag is when someone criticizes you instead of trying to help you learn from a situation. So I had a horrible leader once. I really hated her. A strong word, but she's dead now. So.
Oh, God. That's what you get. Bad leadership means you get dead. Yeah. Was it a no face, no case situation? Yeah.
She, like, there were so many things, but I do remember a time specifically where she was like, oh, you know, you're really arrogant in the way that you come across. So you need to actually rein that in a little bit. And like, I'm a confident...
What, they said that to you?
They said that to me,
Jesus Christ.
I am a confident person, but don't mistake confidence for arrogance.
Yes.
Like, I don't think I am arrogant. And that stuck with me for ages, and it made me go in on myself. And actually, as a manager, what she should have done was say, like, if there was a problem with it, I mean, I think this one was just out to get me, but... What she should have done was say, you know, oh, in meetings, sometimes you talk over people or something, like... looked for a behavior and then told me how to fix it and told me they like made me aware of it. And that was just an example of what arrogant might be perceived. I don't think I talk over people in meetings, but that is a red flag for me when someone absolutely just criticizes you. They don't give you a clear example of what needs to be improved or help you try and improve it. They just tell you, you are this thing, I didn't like it, and then you're stuck with it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Christ. Well, that got a bit deep, didn't it? But no, I agree. That's probably similar to one of my key ones, which is if you ever shout at me, like, you're never going to get anything good from me ever again.
That is a good one.
Like, I just don't think, and I think this stems from my dad always used to shout at me when I was younger and I hated it. So I'm obviously like traumatized by it. But his favourite thing to do is I'd be doing something I shouldn't be doing. And he'd burst in the room and be like, Dad, do that. You know, I'd be like proper shouting. It would scare the shit out of me. And then I'd be like shaking for the rest of the day, right? And that's now echoed in like, and fortunately, I don't think I've ever done anything that egregious at work that I've ever been like shouted at. But there's a way that you can address someone when they've done something wrong.
Yeah, totally agree.
That isn't shouting, belittling, And I'm just big on you don't need to raise your voice. Like you can talk stern to me and be upfront and be frank, but don't shout at me. So if you're a manager and you're shouting at people, in the bin.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Good red flag. So my next manager red flag is when you only get offered a salary increase when you tell them you're leaving.
Yeah.
I think if someone's prepared to offer you more money when you're leaving, they knew your worth originally and they just didn't give it to you.
Yeah, for sure. Why does that happen so much?
Like, you should be paying someone fairly. Like, you should be reviewing every time you have your performance review, your salary review. You should be reviewing the market, knowing the level that they're at and offering them a salary that is fair for that role. And so for then somebody to leave, obviously you don't want to leave them, you want to try and sweeten it, but like they should already be at that level.
Yeah, they should have come to you and been like, you're doing great, you've been here for an insert amount of time. Here, at the very least, they should have a roadmap for you to be getting to that position that you've obviously shown that you want.
Yeah, I guess this only is true when you leave for salary. Like, if you're leaving for, like, I want to work remotely all the time, then fair enough.
Yeah.
But like, I hate when the salary conversation comes up just as someone's handing you the notice. No, we'll give you more money. It's like, do you think that's why I work
Yeah, and
here?
also, has anyone really gone... Has anyone? I'd love to know the stats. There's one for another podcast, but I'd love to know the statistics on people who are offered more money by existing employers once someone's decided to leave,
I'll have to,
and how many people stay after their...
Do you know
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how they, we'll pay you 10 grand more, and they're like, okay, then
I'll stay.
problem solved.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because then surely that just builds like a level of animosity afterwards, and the manager's like, well, I'm bloody paying them way more, and you're like, well, they weren't going to pay me unless I left. Do you know what I mean? That's a weird thing. Have I got another red flag?
I have another one.
Go on, you go.
So my third manager red flag is a manager who takes credit for your work.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Aren't they just the worst people?
Oh, like I read, especially when you're like in the room and they're like doing a presentation or something.
That you made. You did the whole presentation.
You did the whole thing.
They're just presenting and everyone goes, oh, well done, Hannah. Good job. You did a really good job. And Hannah, who's the manager, didn't do anything, just talked, was like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, when they just say thank you as well. When they don't go, oh, yeah, look, this was because my team's done really great.
I'm just here. I'm just the voice piece of my team. That would be, go on, Hannah. That's the right Hannah we want.
Yeah, just fucking lapping it up and you're looking at them like... You bastards.
Horrible. That is a big red flag.
No, that's a good one. That's definitely can that be one of mine as well? Because I do hate people when they take credit for something you've done. Or don't like. I think that's. I mean, can we do green flags? A green flag for me in terms of managers is like people celebrating your wins and that are very good at like. Because I clearly thrive off external validation that I'm doing the right thing. But even just little things, like my boss said to me the other day after reviewing a strategy, it was like, really good job on that. And that probably meant more to me than like, you know, like a team lunch or like any of that stuff, or even the client being happy with what we'd eventually present to them. But my boss being like, yeah, you've done a good job there. It was like... Yeah, decent. But then I'm probably a words of affirmation kind of guy. Well,
that could be true. However, I'll give you some stats around this because actually a staggering 79% of people will leave a job if they're not getting adequate recognition.
I can see why.
Me too. And actually, we run employee surveys, we get feedback and stuff. The stuff that comes up all the time is around, I need more small thank yous, or it's the small thank yous that make an impact. Like, what do you like about working here? I love that when I've done a good job, I get told I've done a good job. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, see, I thought that was just kind of me. I thought some people were just like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, whatever. I'll do the stuff. You don't have to tell me that I've done it.
People like doing a good job.
Yeah, I think I've got a bit of a red flag. Yeah. Just toxicity in general by a boss. You know,
like a gossiper.
Yeah, like a gossiper, someone who like makes little sly comments, someone that then, that same person that then can't take...
Oh, but you didn't work on that, did you?
Yeah, but apparently, according to this stat, they're everywhere. So 71% of workers have had a toxic boss at some point in their careers, and 31% of people say they're currently working under one.
Wow.
But one is like, why are you still putting up with it? I suppose some people have to insert privilege.
Also, people who are toxic like that wear away at your confidence.
Yeah, fully.
And then it's really hard to get another job. I've been in that same woman I was talking about before. I was in a position where I felt low because she chipped away at my confidence for so long, and I just got to breaking point, and I went to like interview in other places, and I wasn't my best self. Like, I would usually smash an interview. However, I've been to
What was the other person saying? Arrogant, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
Like I went into this interview after that and they were like, oh, tell me a bit about this. And I was just in over my head. I had no confidence left. I was fully like, oh, I'll just like learn that on the job. Like, worst interview I've ever done. It's because I was so broken.
Yeah, it's horrendous when it's like that. But the opposite of that is so nice when it comes to life. Like when you've, as a leader, kind of like nurtured someone and then you see it in action and you're like, that's also like just the warm fuzzy thing you get inside when you see someone smashing something, or like going from like someone who's obviously not comfortable in like client facing positions, but then after you've kind of taken them maybe to a few meetings and tried to like, you know,
it's so rewarding.
Yeah, and then you see them and you're like,
as a leader,
yes,
so
go
rewarding.
For it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I've definitely had a few moments like that where you can actually see the impact of their growth and development on them as a person, and like how they're turning into this full professional. It's just, what a nice feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Any other red flags?
No, I'm done with red flags.
Green flags.
Green flags.
Let's try and finish on some positivity, shall
we? Okay, I think that someone who does spend time teaching you how to do something, or gives you good feedback and checks your understanding.
Yes, like, checking understanding.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing of like, okay, I've tried to do a thing, it's not quite how you wanted it, I'm going to put it in front of you, you're now giving me constructive feedback, this is why this bit needs to change, like have a look at XYZ, here's some examples of stuff like how I want you to do it. That's really good feedback, because it's like they're still going away, they're doing the research, they're learning, and they're bringing all that back and then having another go themselves. But then you're actually giving them
constructive feedback at the end of it.
Exactly, and then you go, yeah, do you understand what you need to do, like checking that, and then they'll give you something back. What I don't think is good is when someone just rewrites. When you send it and they just go, it wasn't how I wanted it, so I just rewrote it. It was quicker. Yeah, it is quicker. But then the second, third, and fourth time,
they're not going to know.
They're still not going to know. So it's about investing that time up front. I think good green flag.
I think everything you've just articulated there is why I hate when people just go, "Have you Googled it? Go find out yourself." Because the majority of the time, if that's not coupled with, okay, I've done it now, how I would do it, and can you review it again, and then like what you've just said there, show me how to do it, provide me constructive feedback. Most of the time it's like, go find it out for yourself. And then there's never the, did you find out how to do that? If not, here's a better way, or like, here's another way you could have done it. Normally it's like, oh, fob them off. Here's here's a, what's it called, a PDF that you can download, read, cry, and try and work out what you're doing. But rarely do you have the whole, did that work for you?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I get what you're saying, but one of my biggest pet peeves is someone who comes to me expecting me to solve all the problems.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I want someone to have a go at the solution first. And that's why the Google comment comes in. It's like, don't ask me all the simple questions if you haven't thought it through first. Like, come to me with a solution and check that. And if you still haven't got it, I will help you. But don't keep coming to me, oh, this client's this, what should I say? What do you think you should say? Tell me what you think first, and then we'll work on that.
Yeah,
that's my thing.
Spoken like a true manager. But no, it's true. I do agree. I think that you have to find that balance where you've spent that time initially to empower the people to like, or your team members to be able to find the answers they're looking for and know the questions to ask to find the answers that they're looking for. Because I think all too often, like, so many jobs will have an onboarding system where it's like, right, here's your onboarding pack, go read that, and I expect you to be up to speed, and that's all the interaction that we're going to have. And I just think that's terrible. It's like, there has to be a period of time where there's like one-to-one engagement, even just from like an understanding how that person operates point of view as a manager and a team member, right?
Getting to know your team members, that's a nice manager green flag.
For sure, get to know inside and outside of work as well.
Ooh.
For sure.
Yeah?
Pint after work with your new boss. Absolutely.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that as well.
For sure. Like, just let's break down these, like, obviously I think work and lifestyle boundaries are good to have, or like outside of work boundaries are good to have. They probably won't exist in the next 20 years. I think everyone's going to be working like all the time, and there's going to be this blurring of lines between the two. So I think it's way more conducive for a team if you can like go for a pint or go for
in a more social setting. You don't have to be best mates.
Yeah, you haven't got to be like best buddies.
Spend a bit of time getting to know them outside.
Yeah, just
I quite like that.
Outside of the work environment where it's like one-to-one time and you feel like, you know, you're actually valued as a human being, not just
absolutely.
a person that's on their payroll, you know.
Definitely.
That'd be the key thing.
My last green flag, if you've got any more. No.
You go with yours
Okay.
now.
So my last green flag is someone who gives you credit where credit's due in front of
In front of others.
senior people. Yeah.
Oh, senior people.
Senior, like other team members. I think, like I've had a boss once who I did something. I don't even think I did it. I think this is the reason I remember it is because I had worked on something and then she'd worked on something for a bit and then sent it off. And like the bit that was getting praised was not the bit that I worked on. And she went back, she's like, yeah, Jenny did it all. And like, I was like,
credited you.
yeah,
and you were there like,
when they were like, oh, this is brilliant, thanks so much. And then she was like, oh, it wasn't me, it was Jenny. And I was like, it wasn't me. It actually wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I think I called her out on it. And at the time, she made that point around, I've already built my reputation. You worked on this. Like, it's only fair that you get the credit where credit's due.
Fair play. No,
and I was like, yeah.
That's great.
I've taken that to heart. Like, I really would always, I would always defer credit to somebody else.
Absolutely more of that.
Yeah.
And I think I've actively been trying to do that because I think I sometimes fall into the category of, because I like getting shit done, being like, yep, I done it. It's finished.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Because I oversee a lot of projects. So it's kind of like, in many ways, I have done it because I've connected all the dots and made it happen. But I actively really try now. Like if I say a designer's worked on something and someone else is doing the digital advertising and I've just kind of put together the strategy, when I'm dealing with or talking to the client about what we're getting done, I very much try and like CC people into emails that have actually done it, or like, you know, when we're face to face being like, yeah, it was all because of insert team member here because they've, you know.
I actually do it with like suppliers as well. Like if I'm working with like a more junior team member, I'll like email the boss and I'll be like, this person's done a really good job on this.
Yeah, you're just way nicer than me, I think.
Just spreading the love.
Yeah, props to you. Well, I don't think I have any more green flags. I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. I think you just basically don't be a dick is probably the best green flag.
Yeah.
Just be a human and like be empathetic, care. Helps a lot. I mean, that's 3 green flags right there after saying I didn't have any. But I think,
and funnily enough, they're all those human skills.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think that it's less like we've been very people focused in terms of our leadership. Like we've talked a tiny bit about like risk taking decision making, but like I do think that the people aspect is so important to a good leader.
Absolutely. I think the majority of the time, especially when there's kind of like blurred edges of job roles and things like that, and with what you're trying to do, that it is what qualifies you as a leader really is like how good you are with people, I think. And that's why I think I can get away being in kind of a managerial position because I'm not like a technical expert on any of the aspects of marketing that I oversee. I have strengths in certain areas, but I would argue that I'm quite a good people person, and I would argue that I'm quite emotionally intelligent. So I can feel like I can enter a room and know if there's like bad juju that day, and I'm like, do you know what? At lunch, I'm going to maybe sneak out and buy everyone like a little Malteser bunny, like I did the other day.
You are nice.
Do you see what I mean? Yeah, but that's few and far between. But that's what I'm trying to get better at because I'm like, oh yeah, no, that is what actually makes people respect you as a
it's
leader.
The little thank yous.
It's the little thank yous.
Little Malteser bunnies.
You need to take my own advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Work in Real Life podcast. I have been Marcus Ferrer.
And I'm Jenny Winsett.
Catch you on the next one.